So I was like wondering what all you do to prepare before this class, more importantly, before your home practice. What types of things do you do to prepare your mind to do yoga, which is often a line I use at the end of centering? And I've been trying to communicate to you that centering is not, a lot of times people think that if you think about centering too much in terms of quieting your mind, um, or turning it off or whatever, um, I think that that's not the, in a way that makes centering becoming a flattening of your experience, you know, flattening it down, polishing off the edges of it, with sandpaper, the rough edges, kind of a flattening. And I think that that's not the way you want to realize in your own practice what centering means. And I've been trying for the last, I don't know, year, months, to get across the idea that centering opens the door to another level of energy, another aspect of energy. So there's energy there, not just emptiness. It's not just a flattening. And I remember a line that I've been trying to realize for a long time. I don't know, I've been practicing yoga for 31 years, so pretty much almost the whole time. I don't remember exactly when this came into me, but where I was told or read that biggest anger thought that Shavasana was the hardest pose. And that's part of why it's at the end of the book. And that and it's fine if you're doing Shavasana and you fall asleep, that just means your body needed to sleep. But in fact, Shavasana is in some ways the most alert pose and the most difficult pose there is, right? Because so the centering in the beginning of a class, it's one of my many applications of that line. The centering at the beginning of a class is more of an awakening, not only to a different layer of energy that your mind judges to be ineffectual, right? Your mind is like, oh, if I'm not busy, I'm not real, right? That'd be like the Cartesian thing. Like, if my mind's not busy, it's not real, right? Incorrect. And the yogis are trying to pass something else down. So as you follow your exhale, it is a relief, but don't think of the relief as a flattening. Think of it as an awakening. And so at first you tune into the space around you, because eventually it will go into less and less experience, centering does. You won't, but so that's why I often have you feel your feet and your sitting bones, and feel the space in the room, and feel the space above you and below you and each side. So I want the mind to get oriented into, so you the parts of your brain that sense, and your nervous system that sense that there's more than just you here, are the last imprint as the mind starts to get quieter. Because in the quietness, let's try to back up here so I'm not in the sun. So in the quietness, there's an alertness. And as you sit with your, so you're creating your feet, your sitting bones. I'm putting my hands on my knees right now, right? Because I'm wanting to create a balanced stool, right? Where my awareness has support, so it can be more open. And my mind needs not to judge too much. It needs to allow me to experience all that's coming in. And so the softening of the organs of perception, the skin on the forehead, around the temples, the jaw, the inside of the mouth, relax your belly, relax your throat, is actually a way to try to get your mind quieter, right? So it cannot flatten, it can deepen. All this before asana starts. So I'm kind of, as I'm going into this place, I'm checking out, letting my alignment, my feeling of feet, sitting bones, connected to the room. I'm feeling that my head is tipped this way. So I'm letting the quietness and the stillness of the pond become an aligning force. Release where you can, exert where you must. Now asana is going to take that still pond and start throwing gentle pebbles into it, creating more movement. So I'm going to start hitting down with my sitting bones, pressing down with the inner edge of my heels, lifting my chest, broadening between the shoulder blades. Now, if you can do it and stay on balance, which I can't very well, bring your hands into prayer. Remember, I heard an instruction once from a body worker, an energetic body worker, said, bring alert stillness to your kidneys. So the middle part of each side of your spine in the mid back. Make sure you stay connected to your sitting bones and feet, but bring a sense of alertness to the middle of the back body, right where the diaphragm is. And keep lifting the chest. As you press your heel of your hands are in prayer, the heels of your hands together, broaden across the collarbones. Hit down through your sitting bones and rise up. There's such a gentle interplay. Hopefully, if you can breathe through your nose easily, do. But notice the soft interplay between the air coming in the pause and then the air going out. Re-soften the inside of your mouth. Let go of your day. Prepare your mind to do yoga. Repose. Find your body in the quiet. That's asana. Don't be afraid of the dissolving of your mind. Keep it grounded in the boundary of your body. Stay alert without intention. Good, and then release. Alert without intention, right? That'd be like, you ever know when people, like when they try to show that they're thinking hard, they furrow their brow? You know, when you're struggling to understand something, you grip around your face, like, what did you say? What did that mean? You know, and you come in and you furrow, you grab. Not what a good asana wants to have, right? So that kind of narrowing of mental focus is not typically the type of focus you want in a yoga pose. You want a type of focus that has more of a, excuse the barfy words, more of a totality, right? A wholeness to your awareness, where you can feel everything at once, right? So again, this idea of there's mental focus, There's body focus when you're like really trying to get your mind and your body to hammer a nail, right? And to be consistent. And then there's a different kind of focus that's got, sort of language sounds so stupid, like a totality of an alertness that comes from a receptivity, right? Because our bodies have energy that go outward. Our spine emanates outward. Our mind, through reflection, is able to take in, right? And let in. And so it makes us a receptacle, right? But so, like, I can let the beautiful green out my window come in, and I want to meet it. Not just like, oh, look how beautiful it is. That is true. It's beautiful, right? I want to meet it. I want there to be a balance that includes my body between me and the beauty outside of me. And I want to express it. This type of including the body in expression is probably, I imagine, the basis of dance, right? Start to detect a rhythm here, and you start moving, expressing out through the limbs. So just take a couple of breaths. Another instruction that I was thinking about this morning. And it's easier to feel this, like, here's homework for your bed at night tonight. For some reason, I have an easier time realizing this when I'm lying down or more horizontal, but not flat horizontal, like on a bolster or something. So my chest is lifted. I remember hearing Gita Iyengar say in a class, we have nostrils, right? But think of especially if you have to breathe more through your mouth, think of each lung as a nostril too, right? So the bottom part is the open part, right? And it's harder to feel this when you're sitting up. But the idea that there might be, whether it's your mouth too, you can make your lungs be the nostril, right? So, but let's say it's more easy to breathe through your nose, and you try to connect the fact that these are both being receptacles, they're both receiving. And they're both letting go. So the inhalation introduces movement, and there's an expansion more to your outer edges. And the exhalation is a stabilizing. So there's this constant, and nothing should be rushed, right? So you're just watching that ebb and that flow of expansion and grounding at the midline that happens more on exhalation. And you're observing this from behind your eyes, from deeper in here, not from what projects outward. Good. And then release. So I've been, as you know, this whole last couple months, I've been thinking a lot about trees, right? Ever since paying attention to the over story. And one of the things that I think I heard an over story, but then I confirmed, I remember more Googling it, but the idea that leaves themselves are the tree's way of putting sugar out into the world. That they're, and it's the warm weather that entices them to put their sugar out, which allows them to take in more sunlight and help photosynthesis, right? So this is the first fall. I don't know, in Minnesota, kind of, you can start to hear for a while now, but the beginning hint of fall, right? So the leaves are still vibrantly green, but they're just past their peak. And if you have a change of seasons, you know exactly the period of time I'm talking about. There's this beautiful stillness before the quote decay starts to happen. And there's a change in the air. So usually we talk about, that like slight crispness of fall, right? And I have in the past been thinking about that in terms of temperature, right? And thinking about that as we move away from summer, there's less humidity, there's less water in the air, right? So there's a change that way. But that never felt like, so I always felt like as the leaves change or as fall comes, there's a drying out of the leaves. But actually, it's a withdrawal also of sugar. So that there's a good chance that what we're, at least I think this is probably right, that like I'm also sensing the beginning of the withdrawal of sugar from the air, right? Because they have to be ready for winter. So they pull the sugar back towards their trunk. And what ends up happening, they do that in a way that sustains the wood, the embodied carbon, but it loses some of its expression, and that expression drops because this is preparation for a change of temperature. And I wonder about that, about one of the things that I've said for a lot of years in teaching is that one of the ways that asana really helps you is that it consistently makes you practice expanding out to your outer edges, right? Out to the top of your head, sitting bones, bottom of your feet, end of your fingertips. And that's part of how it has its effect, its healthy effect, is that it, even especially as we age, it actually keeps the sugar running to the outer edges, right? And that's something that's a little bit under our control, right? Is as we age, a lot of us we all should be playing on the floor more, right? There's a whole bunch of ways in which we're like withdrawing from stuff, right? So this idea of expanding out to the outer edges, and also it struck me this morning about, well, like as you age, you lose circulation, right? You don't get to the outer edges as well. And that would also could become a condition like diabetes, right? Where the sugar is deregulated out to the outer edges. So you lose sensation at the edges of your awareness, right? So all of a sudden I'm thinking this morning, holy crimes, we're maybe not that different than trees, for God's sakes. So sit up straight and tall. Feel your feet and your sitting bones. And there's an expression out to the outer edges, right? Right. And part of it is part of what an asana makes you do is make sure you follow it all the way through. Right. So put your arms down by your sides. Now, if I do both arms by my sides, I fall back behind the balance point in the way my wheelchair is. So then it's not quite as satisfying, but I can still force my way to the outer edges. Right? But I'm going to lean forward a little bit so I'm out of my hole and do one arm at a time. So I'm going to get on the front edge of my sitting bones, right? And I'm going to stretch one arm down and make sure I go to the outer edges beyond my fingertips. Remember, I said the centering was for awakeness, right? But now one of the ways that I try to go to the outer edge of my fingertips is to overlock my elbow. So what if I try to squeeze my tricep, the back of my arm, bring the muscle to the bone of the upper arm, travel through the middle space of my elbow without exerting it, and then gently expand my palm out to my fingers. Now, as I do, does anyone else want to sit up slightly taller? I do. Part of me wants to mirror what's happening in my hand. And then I'm going to release and go to the other side. Remember, last week and the week before, I've been teaching from trying to make a singularity, right? So I'm getting on the right kind of balance that I want. I'm stretching my arm down. I'm lifting my chest. I'm trying to make awareness go beyond my fingertips into the world without overlocking my elbow. I'm lifting under the collarbone, sitting down through my sitting bones, down through my feet. Good, and then release. What if In the little things, all the big things are contained, right? Put both hands down by your sides now. This is just trying to actually express out through my fingertips all of these words, all of these actions. So I'm lifting the collarbones, I'm expanding, taking my bicep and tricep towards the upper arm bone, extending, trying not to overgrip my elbow, trying to catch the energy with the skin on my palms, go out through my fingertips, and use that to lengthen my neck and the top of my head. Breathe. Good, and then release. Out to the outer edges, the voice cries, right? And then come forward and then come back. So we're just doing that warm up again. Because remember the line from, I'm just incorporating that line now from David Swenson, right? Release where you can, exert where you must. How can I release into more space into my low back, right? So I'm introducing movement to wake something up, to get a sense of more space, because I want the relief to show me the alignment, right? And that's what David was trying to say. Instead of trying to perfect the alignment, which is one of the big complaints about Iyengar yoga, he was saying, let the release show you the alignment, right? And that's an interesting way of proceeding. And so I'm lifting up, I'm putting traction in my lower back. I don't want to just collapse in there. And I'm going to do it again because gravity and how I sit collapses my low back. And damn it, I'm going to have a harder time staying connected to the relief, right? I don't know about you, does low back pain make you clench your jaw? Does me. Inhale, take it up. So like the relationship between my low back and the inside of my mouth, holy crimes. Inhale, lift up. So I'm just adding a little bit of twist here. I'm going to release my twist. I'm going to start making the movement. So the first two times I didn't use my legs enough. This third time, I want to make sure I know where my sitting bones are, where my feet are, do it from behind my eyes. And then as I turn, I'm going to let the turn feed my legs. I'm going to lift my chest to get more energy activated. I'm getting to the outer edges now. Don't think of the outer edges just as your extremities, right? The outer edges of your torso is incredibly important, right? And then back to center. And then I'm finding my sitting bones again. I'm moving. I'm using the movement to make my mind get undull, right? Inhale, take the arm up. The movement gives my mind input. My mind struggles without input because it's afraid, right? So now I'm letting that, I'm inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve, but I'm not trying to win. And I'm trying to make sure I've used my sitting bones in my legs, and then back, I'm going back, watching the process. Like I just did, that was crappy on my part. So I'm coming back again, I'm reposing and trying to bring back more, and then going back. Now I want to make sure I get more of my legs, more of my sitting bones as I twist back into the pose. And once I'm there, I realize that the true way to get to my outer edges is to lift my chest. Soften my gaze, use less of my will and more of my receptivity. Release where you can, exert where you must, or a slight revision on that, exert after relief, right? And then back and forward, still trying to get this kind of fluidity into my spine, right? And so, like, for whatever reason, I really like pushing here. So I get my legs more involved in the lift and falling back in my chest, right? And then I come back through it. Man, there's a big difference between here, and then the process of coming through it, and then I'm going to lift again. And again, we're trying to get the inside of one of the core movements of sun salutation, right? I fall open, keeping the earth with me, and then I study what it is to go through that and change gravity, right? So you're going back and forth, right? Trying to have something here. Good, and then sit in the center. So I've been trying to figure out how to keep studying trees and not wanting just to use knowledge, science knowledge, to study trees. That's why I'm into trying to feel the sugar in the air as it leaves. Right, so sit up straight and tall. Feel. And then go way farther over than you would have normally. So I'm going down, I'm touching the floor. Right? But don't fall out of your chair. Then I'm touching the floor over here. Ooh, one side's easier, right? I'm going back and forth a few times. Now, I hope that over the time that we've been, and then I'm coming back to the center, that we've been hanging together, that you've been studying when a movement becomes more yogic, right? And so as I'm leaning over each side, this next time I'm going to do it and try to like use my developing yogic sensibilities to make an ordinary movement have more grace in it, right? So I'm going back and forth to whatever extent you do, whether you touch the floor or not. But I'm waiting. Oh, wait, no. So what's my chest doing as I move? How fast does it collapse? So I'm going back and forth, and I'm going to pick up the speed, not because that's more yoga, but because I got to stay open without being able to feel it, right? So I'm going back and forth, right? And I have trouble getting over to the left side here, right? And then I'm going to be in the middle again. I'm going to take stock of where my trunk is. I'm going to hit down through the sitting bones, down through my feet, go up to the top of my head to make sure I'm not wasting my tree trunk. Stretch my arms down. How do I get to the outer edges? Take your arms wide. So when I take both arms up at once, right, my trunk goes down into the earth too fast because I lose balance. You probably don't, right? I don't know what you do exactly. So I'm going to reground and take this arm up because without grounding, I can't get to my outer edges. Not as well. If my spine goes too fast towards the ground, I lose the outer edges, right? And then I'm going to reverse. And then I'm going to reverse. Now, this whole time, be your own yogi and make every movement more like yoga, right? Don't wait for my instructions. Know what you know and practice what you know about what yoga feels like, about what asana feels like. Don't wait for me, right? Good, and then I'm going to do the one that satisfies my ego, but not, right? Here my spine drops a little bit, and I don't have the abdominal control to lift my spine as much. So this is, going to hurt my neck in a while. But I'm hanging with the pain for a little bit, trying to go beyond my fingertips and then back. Right, and then I realized, oh boy, I like it better when it's just one arm. Right, I actually learn more when it's one arm. Right, depends on how much I think I have to prove. So I'm going backwards, forwards again. Right, because I want the energy to keep moving here. So, isn't one of the gifts of getting older knowing better where your outer edges are? I don't mean just of your body. I mean like how much you care about what other people think. How much, if you could just pass this on to our kids, right? Yet it motivates them to think they have to prove something all the time, and it makes them suffer at the same time. What are your outer edges in the context of your life? One of the things that the pandemic has made me rethink is where my outer edges are in relationship to social space, right? Like how much do I have to re-enter everything, right? So where are your outs? So sit up straight and tall. Just as you sit there in alignment, supporting your spine and feeling before the sugar, right? Right. What's one place that you can tell in your life, not just because you're overworking, where you're overextended, where you put too much energy into something? Well, we all have like 17,000 of those places, right? Pick one. What part of your life do you tend to spend too much energy? Maybe it's worry. Maybe it's worry about something. Maybe it's concern about a kid or a family member or a friend. Find the place where your expression to your outer edge is off balance and smile to yourself about it. Shit, I'm wasting energy there. Not because you don't care. There's many expressions of caring. I find it so presumptive that people think they hold space for other people. To me, it's like a guffaw of presumption. No, you actually be in space with people. So I'm just sitting here thinking about the place where I spend too much time in relation to someone in my life, and I was like, my son, right? And I just sit here. Release where you can, exert where you must. So in the place where I'm like allowing something to release, I'm breathing. But I'm letting my mind traverse the space where I hold too much attachment. It's a good place. I don't feel bad about it. Good, and then release. And now I'm going to start moving again. But now I'm going to exercise that attachment, whatever your attachment is, whatever the one you just identified, right? And you're going to go, wait, do I have to squeeze it so tight, right? Really? Right? Do I have to, can I get more of my outer edges? So what happens when the mind confronts attachment, right? It tends to flatten out the space. It narrows my expression. Then watch the next time you're at like you have a family dynamic, like in your extended family that's complicated, how much you don't expand your outer edges in those examples, right? And then you can always tell the person that's trying to grow, they try to go to the outer edges verbally. So they have to pick fights with everybody, right? Because they're trying to like find their outer edges again in relationship to what they don't have outer edges to. So I'm squeezing my upper arm together. I'm lifting my collarbones. I'm extending beyond my fingertips. I'm finding my base. I'm balancing my head over my neck because I'm ready. I'm letting the relief and the release guide my efforts. Good, and then release. And you thought we were just practicing asana, right? Take your legs wide. Right? Take up more space now. So you got the same thing that you hold on to too much. I don't know what it is, right? And I'm going to take up more space in relationship to it, right? So I'm going to ground and get bigger in space. I'm going to make sure I practice to my outer edges as I'm being aware of what I'm exercising today, right? And then releasing, of course, I'm going to lean over because I'm going to get more exertion here. It's not just the tablecloth of the universe that comes towards you and away from you on inhalation and exhalation. You get to practice your attachments too, right? You get to like realize how to have your outer edges. And Okay, so then I'm going to go over and up. Right? So I'm finding the core of me and going to my outer edges. Sugar? What the hell? Right? That's kind of cool. Sugar? Sunlight, breathing, and sugar. Sounds like a path to wisdom, actually. Legs together, right? A little bit of water in there. What the hell? Now I'm coming back to the midline, keeping the movement up, right? Because I want to keep moving with all this. So often, I've worked for years with people with, I actually train more therapists, right? For people that work with eating disorders, right? And there's a way to make your movement be a distraction. It's like, I don't know, there's a whole like kind of range of eating disorders. Like the person gets, especially anorexia, gets over, my legs are wide again, gets overactive. Because rather than moving their attachments with the movement, they're using the movement as a distraction, right? As a thing that they get to control because they don't know how to control the center part of their trunk, right? Your mind will never know how to control your trunk, by the way, right? That's deeper than your mind goes. It's above your mind's pay grade, right? And then back to center. Then I'm going to back bend with my legs wide. I'm going to come forward. I'm grabbing my foot pedals. So I'll fall forward. And now I'm just doing a similar movement, but now with my base different. Because I want to get to all the edges of my experience. One way is to think about a good yoga practice is, are you getting to all your edges, your outer edges in the movements? And then back, bring your legs back together. You can't truly get to your outer edges without finding your trunk, right? Without finding your core. You're not actually, violence out here does not get you to your outer edges. Satiates your mind, right? Makes you think you're accomplishing something. But what it is to get your outer edges as part of your grounding. So now I'm hitting down through my sternum, feeling the top of my head, feeling the space between my ear and my shoulders, connecting to the space behind me, hitting down, rising up, and then letting the drama that's going to take your life the rest of the week. By the way, it's going to take your mind the rest of your week. Right? Don't be mad at yourself for that. That's part of being human. Practice other things too. I want to be involved in the drama of my life and the attachments. I totally do. Right? Inhale up. Exhale. I'm going to grab my knee this time, so I'm going to lean forward a little bit. So this twist feels better. This is my Michyasana 1. You know that anything about the twist, and then I'm going to open, but I'm going to stay grounded. I'm going to activate, but then I'm going to use slowness to make sure I stay to my outer edges, right? I don't use slowness to control. I use slowness to become, sometimes in a pose, to make sure the alertness that comes from centering becomes part of the effort. And then I breathe. I'm thinking, hey, this is pretty freaking dynamic and I'm breathing. This is good. It's probably smart. And then I'm going to uncoil as if it matters and find my trunk again. And then I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go up and over. I'm just going to grab my knee, lean forward some, grab where, and this is so different. If I fight to get things the same, I'm going straight to hell. They don't have to be the same. right? So one side's so different. Gotta get forward here. I can tell I'm better if I'm forward. I'm happier if I'm not falling backwards. Good, and then come on back to center. Of course, that means sometimes I should fall backwards as I'm twisting, right? In fact, I'm gonna try one. I'm gonna go forward in my chair. I'm gonna lean back. I'm gonna take the arm up. I'm gonna do the twist from a sloppier base and recognize, although it's easier, it's less. It's harder for me to move more of my life with me, right? It's just like an action. So now I'm going to use yoga again. I'm going to make the twist, bring the whole tablecloth of me with me. I'm going to open. I'm going to go this hand here, right? I'm going to make sure I'm going down. My palms open, and I'm going out through my fingertips as I'm twisting and lifting into my collarbones, as I feel my feet in my sitting bones, and then release. So today's practice, I'm trying to make sure the efforts I usually do, I'm wanting it to travel to the outer edges. And I'm doing it, I'm starting it from a place of slop, right? And then knowing that I gotta add value in order to get it to be not slop. And remember, I'm trying to get my hands. And if you can do it with your feet, do it with your feet too. Get to the outer edges, top of your head too, as you twist. Don't grind your trunk. Use your trunk to the outer edges. Let the outer edges guide your trunk and your trunk. So right now there's a deer and a baby fawn walking right in front of my window, and they're very, very cute. The baby fawn doesn't quite know where to go. It's following its mama. The mama's going forward, like, here's how you go forage, green stuff before it's all gone. Here's how you get the ending sugar of the end of summer. It's funny to watch teaching and then go back and forward and back. I think that I have gotten too attached in my own practice to this midline. And this will be true in my whole life lately for a while, and not living up to my outer edges enough. Right? So I'm going to throw myself more off balance, take my arm more in the air and go, for God's sakes, I'm going everywhere. Right? I'm going to use alignment so this wouldn't be as aligned. Right? I'm trying to figure out how to be open through my fingertips, through this side, to get more. Right? If you can't straighten your arm, that's fine. It's here. All these things I'm activating, but I'm staying connected to the relief, right? Because I want to take up space, damn it. Right? I don't want to give it away all the time. Don't want to let my problems guide me, or the habitual daily pain that I have in my body guide me. I'm going to exercise those. Good, and then come on back to center. Kind of curious how exercise and exorcise are similar in how they sound. Back and forth. Because on a Monday, for God's sakes, I better start the week with the trunk to my outer edges. Because all week it's going to get challenged, right? All week. Right? My expression of my outer edges, without the need for violence and improving it, is going to get challenged all week. Every week. Then lift my sternum. So I'm going to hang here for a while with a lifted chest. So I like coming forward and grounding my forearms against my legs and letting the center of my chest be the front of the pose, not my eyes or my vision. And I like to find use my shoulder blades to support the center of my chest, the inner edge. And I'm going to really get this part of me being super strong. Now connected to the rest of the room. Release where you can, exert where you must. Let that relationship between the center of your chest and the room teach you the alignment of the pose. Listen to your own pose. Good. And then release. So one of the things that, another line that would continually, it still bugs me. Okay. This is one of those things where I'm willfully defiant of something I know to be true, that pain and fatigue comes to guide you. Right. And so when I was just doing that just now and coming forward, doing it again and trying to figure out how to use my shoulder blades and my base to make this the strongest point of what I'm doing, one side of me started to hurt and fatigue faster than the other side. Right? So clearly I was overworking one side. So this next time, I'm going to do it better. I'm going to listen to what fatigues faster. Release where I can. Exert where I must to stay balanced. To keep the fatigue, the inevitable fatigue, distributed. So my breath can have more quality within the fatigue. Good, and then release. I want to go back again. I want to go forward. I want to come up from the depths. I want to stay moving. I want to open. I want to exert to my outer edges from my trunk. I'm going to make this be not just slow, but rhythmic, right? So I'm going to my core and back open, and I'm exercising how my relief should be part of my boundary, right? So I don't burn unnecessary energy this week because my mind's trying to make it dramatic. Right? Remember, your mind craves drama to make it seem real, right? And then come back to center and ask yourself, again, a hard reflective question. What aspects of your life do you make too dramatic to make them seem real? That's an honest question, right? Good thing for you, you don't have to say it out loud. So I'm just sitting, taking stock. So remember, I believe truthfulness is an energy. It's not just a thought. There are places where I can tell, if I'm honest and quiet, that I'm making them too dramatic. Some places I need to make more dramatic, but right now I'm focusing on being really honest in relationship to my life. So identify what that place might be for you. Maybe it's just today, maybe it's this week. And there's probably good reason you made that place too dramatic. It's not because you're just a ninny. But now as I smile at the place I've had to make more dramatic, right, I'm going to start grounding. I'm going to actually use the boundary of asana to help things transform. I'm using symmetry. So I know my boundary in relationship to what I've overly mentalized, probably for good reason. And in this place, before the outer edges, I'm going to breathe. Let there be movement. We're much more resilient than we think. Contrary to the cultural meme, your mind is probably the most fragile part of your existence. Mm-hmm. But it helps if it gets on board. So you center. So you let it sink down to be part of the river. And you use the boundary of your body for it to feel safe and nourished. And you breathe. Always breathing. And you don't even have to work on that. You will breathe. It's autonomic. It's automatic. Good. And then prepare for Shavasana. Feeling your outer edges so you can take support. So get into the whole room. Your mind has to quiet down. The whole room, mental awareness of the whole room creates vulnerability for your mind. So don't lead with your mind. Learn from Shavasana. When to turn it on and when to turn it off. The protector, right? Lips together, teeth slightly apart. Maybe you're holding tension on your face. It's got to melt. Release where you can. Let the universe exert you. Feel your chair, support. Stay sensitive. Alert without judgment. Felt. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank it again. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. Allowing the top of the inhalation and the bottom of the exhalation to be graceful. Open your eye. So this idea of like that the outer edges is maybe where some of the both where maybe some of the happiness and the beauty of life is, but also some of the suffering, right? And especially if you get too attached to making stuff happen outside, right? I remember listening to Gary Kratzev, who's a world-renowned yoga therapist, but also quite a religious scholar, studied a lot of ancient texts. And I listened to him in a lecture, in a workshop years ago. And he kept talking about enlightenment and in the context of certain yogic texts. And I raised my head and I said, I raised my hand and I said, so given all your experience, I mean, you're talking about all this stuff, Gary, how would you describe the sensation of self or of self-realization or of enlightenment or of samadhi? And he was flummoxed, right? Because what do you mean? Because you worry about answering that question because it's presumptive that you actually know what the sensation would mean. And then it's also like all this other stuff, all this other structure we put around everything. If you don't actually just pay attention to the sensation, the emergent sensation that you have in yourself, right? And he said something kind of curious. He said, I think he was quoting an ancient text, by the way. A place of rest within your own self. Right. So as you said, and we're about to, and next week, by the way, it's Labor Day, no class, so we'll put on a recording, right? But as you sit here for a second before you go into your week, what's the place of rest? It's funny that a storm even has an eye of the storm, right? What's that place? Not that I want to compare your life to a storm, but it's a storm relative to the eye of the storm, right? And maybe some of the places you don't have to put so much energy into. It's amazing what a yoga practice, how it can enhance your reflection and your honesty about your reflection. It doesn't change your reflection. For me, it changes my honesty and truthfulness in relationship to reflection. So I sit and go, All right, everybody. Sounds good if you can. Namaste. Spirit in me, Buzz the spirit in you.